the airport could get shut down and I could get stuck out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that, and then it's like a lot of stuff going on around it. But um, anyways,
Yo, Robert, where's he getting married at?
New York.
Okay.
There's in New York tomorrow evening. So Zakaria is like pretty much, is like one of like main. He's like really. I mean, he's going to be signing the Ketubah, Baruch I mean, the B'vat Hashem, right? So he's like really in charge. So I was just talking to him and just talking to him, just going over because there's like so much going on. You know what I mean? It's like a massive thing. The thing about Yehoshaphat just as like a concept. He's just, I met him. I met Zakaria. How did I meet Zakaria? Right. So one day I was walking. I was in Meir Shari, right, and it was like when I was like, really, really in yeshiva, like really in yeshiva. This is probably like I don't know, like maybe like 2018 type of thing, 2018, maybe 2019. I think it was like 2018. I met him. I think it was around then. Maybe 2019. Was it the year before Corona? Maybe it was a year and a half before. I don't know. So it was like 2018-ish type of thing, like the middle of the year type of thing. Anyways, I just remember I was living in Meir Sharim, which is like a very religious place. And I was walking down the street and I saw this guy who was studying at another yeshiva, but I just seen him around. We would see each other around. And he was with Zakaria. Yeah, so he was this guy that I knew was the guy that I knew was like he was walking with Zakaria, and I just saw him, and like I don't know, like maybe he had a hat on, he had these glasses, and like he's kind of like a lighter complected type guy. So I was like, I just thought maybe he was like some like I don't know, like one of these guys that was like in yeshivas, like biracial, maybe I don't know. I was just like, it was just like I was just like in one of those places where I wasn't like, hey, where you from type of a thing. Anyways, long story short, I kind of like ignored him a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like I don't know. Like it's hard to explain. You know what I mean? But it was like one of those moments where it was like you meet somebody and you know you're gonna see them again, but you don't really feel like starting that like whole process now. You know what I'm saying? And so you're just like whatever, right? Anyway, long story short, so that was my only interaction with him. So then, literally a couple weeks later, I'm in this class in yeshiva, and it's me learning 101 with this teacher, and we were, basically going over Hebrew and this whole thing, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm just going back and forth. His name's Rabbi Booth, right? And so me and Rabbi Booth were, and Rabbi Booth was like, kind of like one of these characters where it's like, he was a specialist in what they call, he was a specialist in what you call like Dick Duke, like which is like grammar and this type of thing. But he was like a comedian, so we like when I say comedian, just like a funny guy, and we just like really connected very well, and we just learned together for years, like in yeshiva. Like he was my main tutor and that type of thing, so he should be blessed. I ran into him a few weeks ago. He's like, "Yeah, we got to learn together some more." And I was like, "I can't." But anyways, long story short, so Zakaria walks in, and he walks in with this Rabbi Mantalon, who's over the Mechina program at Or Sameach. And so Zakaria walks in with Rabbi Matalan, and I'm sitting in there. And so they come in there, and he's just like, "Yeah, I want you guys to meet Zakaria, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, and I look up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's the guy from the streets. That's the guy that I saw on the streets." And so it was just like momish, like Haskaka Pratis. It was just like divine intervention, right? So when he comes and kind of like, and they were kind of like bigging him up, yeah, he went to law school and this, blah, 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 this whole thing. So, anyways, so I get his number. because the rabbi comes up, he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make Zachariah the next Mordecai," because he was trying to be funny, because I'm like the cool older guy there, and I like excelled in learning and that type of thing. So he's just like, "Yeah, we're gonna make it," and I was like, "All right, whatever." So anyway, so I give Zachariah's number, and we just started to talk. So he started telling me we met up, we got something to eat. He started telling me a story, what blah blah. So this, whatever, and we just started to hang out. And he started to come to yeshiva, and they let him in Or Sameach. And he was actually going through a conversion process because he went through a conversion prior, but it was conservative, which could have technically counted, you know what I mean? But he went through a very high level one in what they call B'nai Brak. You may see B'nai Brak they talk about it in the Haggadah actually. But anyways, so I met him and he started coming to Or Sameach and he was in one of our programs. I was in the obviously a more advanced program, but um, the yeshiva loved him, and everybody loved him and this whole thing. And so one thing he tells me that he's like, yeah, I ran into this guy, Mark Stoudemire. And I was like, who, the basketball player guy? He's like, yeah, 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 yeah. I was like, yeah, I know he's out here. He plays for the whatever. And, it's funny too. A year prior to that, or maybe a year and a half prior to that, I was out like in the West Bank, if you could imagine, and I was at staying by somebody at Shabbat in one of these probably illegal settlements. Now I'm looking back on it, and I was just there. It was when I first kind of like came to Israel, and I made friends with this guy who was there, a young guy, and he took me to some basketball games. He loved basketball, and so he would take me to Jerusalem, the Harpo Yerushalayim basketball team, and Amari was playing. I never met Amari. This the whole thing. So Zachariah is telling me about this whole thing about this guy Amari, blah blah. He's like, he's really into Judaism, blah blah. So I was like, all right, yeah, it sounds cool. That's dope, right? And so, anyways, so he just said it in passing. And then maybe a couple months later, whatever, he comes back and he's just like, yeah, bro, this guy Amari, bro, you got to meet him. He wants to meet you. I was talking about Or Sameach and the yeshiva and learning and this and blah 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 blah. So I was like, all right, yeah, that's dope. And so, and I'm telling you, bro, like this is like at this stage of my life, I'm literally learning 8 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? Like morning to night, morning to like zombie, like robot, like counting how many steps it takes to get there. You know what I mean? So I'm just totally focused. And so he comes in. So we met at this restaurant in Jerusalem called Crave. And so he comes in, and so he just comes, sits down. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. Like, cause I didn't really grow up with the Amari Stoudemire basketball generation. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like his age. You know what I mean? Like, I was like over basketball. Like once I like got out of like out of like high school, like really, I really started to like get over sports. Like, I don't know, I had this whole theory that sports is fixed and the whole thing, right? But the point is just saying that, the point is just saying that so Amari was like there, and then we started talking about yeshiva, this, blah, blah, blah. We met at this restaurant, whatever. And he came, and then he said, "Yeah, man, I want to come to yeshiva. I want to learn." I was like, "All right, cool." So imagine all of a sudden Amari Stoudemire and Zakari, they're in a yeshiva, right? And there's 400 other students there, right? At all different programs, different things, different dynamics, and like everyone's on fire, right? And so he's there, this whole thing, blah blah. So now he's there, he's coming there learning, and so it was an amazing time at the yeshiva at Or Sameach, like Amari Stoudemire's there and this, and it's like this whole big like concept. But it was just like it was such a moment for so many of those kids because they were like, wait, a professional basketball player wants to come and learn this Torah? Like what, like how much do I appreciate where I'm at, like what I have, This guy, hundreds of millions of dollars, you know what I mean? Like, and this is what he wants to do with his time, his life. So that was a very like big moment. And so we just became all friends, We became like study buddies and this, and he was going through a transition in his own personal relationships, and Zakaria was the one who really just made everything happen. Like when it comes to the Amari Stoudemire, situation, like Zakaria Lakai Maji, like, he really made that happen. And it got so big that Nassim Black started coming to Or Sameach. So we were all there. It was just like this crazy like moment in Black history, that we're just like all up there. Nassim has this Gemara. He wants to be up there because Gemara, the whole thing. I mean, it was still like it was just like that moment. It was a moment, and so now he's getting married tomorrow. You know, and it's just been like I have so many stories. I'll tell you this one story, and then we're going to start to share. So it was during Pesach, which is coming up. It's amazing that this is like coming up. So it was the last day of Pesach. So it was during Corona, right? They literally Amari. This is a funny story. Amari and L'chaim OG, they had to smuggle me out of Be'er Sharim because in the religious community during Corona, the cops blocked it off. They're like, "Yeah, you guys aren't taking shots. Y'all can't leave. Y'all contaminated." You know what I'm saying? So Amari and them were able to get in with a car. And so I went in there. They went, and I had to like jump in the back of the car and lay down in the back because I didn't have any like ID that shows I had like a shot, type of thing. And so because it was Stoudemire, they just let them drive through. You know what I mean? And so they got me out of there. And so we stayed at a house, like this huge mansion over in Emek Refine, which is a part in Jerusalem, like not more than like 15, 20 minutes where I'm at, from where I lived. And so we spent all of Pesach together. And that was like a huge time because it was just me, him, Zachariah, and then his son, his oldest son. I think his name's Amari too, actually. And so we were all there, and so we just really bonded to that time of Pesach. But here's the story I wanted to tell you, and the true story, and it was actually, it's actually written in a book. The story, it's just crazy. There's a famous writer in the Jewish world. His name's Nachman Seltzer, right? And so when I was in yeshiva, his parents used to host us all the time, right? The Seltzer family, right? And we used to always hear about his son. His son's like this famous writer, fiction Jewish writer, autobiographer, this type of thing, whatever. So one time they invited me over there, and it was like right after I got married. And he was one of the Nachman Seltzer's father was one of the people who signed on my wedding document. He's one of the witnesses, right? So we're very like close. So anyway, but he's a huge writer, and so I came over there for actually another Pesach the year after that, and I told him the story. So here's the story. So we were all over. We were staying at this person's house, this huge mansion, which was a friend of Zacharias. This is lady. It's like a whole story. Her name's Fairneck. She like owns all this crazy property, but Zachariah knows everybody, right? So we had this huge mansion, and Zachariah made all the food, everything, but we did our Pesach Seder all together. And we did the days, and then we took a break in the middle because there's 8 days, and he went to his other apartment, and then we came back for the last days of Pesach, right? So the last days of Pesach, so we're just chilling, whatever. And so, it's Corona time, right? And it was crazy Corona in Israel because it's like, it was like cops are like driving down the street, like, get in the house, get in the house. It was like, it's like everything's so like, not professional in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? It's like kids. The police officers are like making jokes together. You know what I mean? It's like everything. Anyway, so the point is like this. So we're walking around, and we were like, okay, we have another friend, and it's a family called the Levy family. So they live like across from where we were staying at. So we're like, hey, why don't we stop over there? And then there's another rabbi. I don't know if you may have heard of him because he's a Rabbi Harry Rosenberg. I don't know if you know who he is, but anyways, he had a small yeshiva. He may still have it. I don't know, but he had a small yeshiva. Rabbi Harry Rosenberg also deserves credit with Amari Stoudemire situation because he met Amari when Amari was playing at the Knicks. Okay. And it was just random, Amari wrote a tweet about the 12 tribes, and Harry Rosenberg responded to it. And then they started to talk, and then they became friends. He starts learning with them. And that really was the segue into like mainstream Judaism for Jehoshaphat. But he didn't really like learn with them like that. It wasn't until Zechariah came and met him in Israel that it became like a whole thing where he met people like myself, and just we just opened up the whole world of Torah to him, the whole yeshiva world. We opened up the whole Mir Yeshiva. We took him everywhere. We showed him everything. We took him to the grave sites. You know what I mean? Like we did everything, right? And um, so anyways, so last day of Pesach, so we're in the house, we're getting restless. Say, hey, let's go by the Levi's. Levies, we go over there, not there. And then we go by Harry's place. Harry Rosenberg, because he lives over there too, but he has actually a yeshiva. So we walk over to Harry Rosenberg's place. We walk over to Harry Rosenberg's place, and we go into that yeshiva, and we hang out there. We're there. Harry's there. Everyone's there. We're just joking, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it's getting late. So we're like, okay, let's go back, because we got to make Havdalah. It's over. We're finished. Woo, Pesach, we're done. So we were going to leave, and then we saw some cops up the street. And we're like, we don't want to go up that way because, we don't want to deal with the cops. Like, why are you guys not in the house? This type of thing. So we walk around the corner and take the longer way. And we went up the street called Rachel Amenu. True story. The name of the street is called Rachel Amenu. That's one of the cool things about Jerusalem. All of the streets are named after Tzaddikim. You know what I'm saying? Or something like the big market is called Machane Yehuda. You know what I mean? Like it's like the territory of Yehuda. You know what I mean? So the point is like this. And so we're walking up the street, and there was a group of men who were praying in the street. Right? They had a minion in the street under the street lamp. It's kind of like a suburban type neighborhood, right? We live in a mansion. And so we're walking the street, and these group of men, Sephardic guys, are in the middle of the street. And we walk up, and I'm like, dude, all these guys are here, bro. I'm thinking to myself, like, we might as well make Havdalah, here, because I'm thinking, like, I got to make it when we go back, all this pressure, that's back in the day when I was, like, still getting used to, like, leading prayers and that type of stuff. So my instinct was like, oh man, these guys definitely do it. And I was asking the guys like, FO, like, is my FO Havdalah? Like, where's the Havdalah? Who's doing Havdalah? And so this random guy standing there, he looks at me, he's like, you need Havdalah? And I'm all, yeah. I said, me and my friends. He said, come with me. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we all walk with this guy, and he literally lives right across the street, right? So he says, wait right here. So he goes inside. He says, wait right. He goes inside. He comes back with a little chair and a little table, and he's like setting up, right? And I'm like, he's like, yeah, we're going to do it out here. And I'm like, all right, fine. It's Corona, that was the spirit. So all of a sudden, people start pouring out of his house, right? There's like all these people inside of his house, and they're coming out, right? And so allegedly, he has all these kids. He has like 8 kids, like crazy amount of kids. Some of his kids were married, and they had kids, right? So they all came outside. And so they're all coming outside. He's bringing his chair, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling what you're about to hear, you won't believe where I'm about to take you, okay? This is a true story. So we're there, and then all of a sudden the guy comes out, and the whole family's there, and he says, Amari doesn't realize it, but we know him very well. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? We mean no? And your host, Amari's standing right there. He's like, we all looking like, what? Like maybe he's a basketball fan. And he said like this. He said, my son had cancer, and he was in the hospital here in Jerusalem. And so Amari was playing on the basketball team for Harpo Yerushalayim, and they would go to the hospital and visit the kids. So Amari made friends with this guy in the hospital. And the thing about it, Amari, used to live in Jerusalem too, right? Before this. And so he used to always tell Amari, he's like, bro, you live so close by my family. When I get out of the hospital, we'll have Shabbat by the house. And they would talk about it. And so this is what this guy's telling us. At the same time, one of the sisters comes out with a picture album. And she shows pictures. Like, who still has a picture album? They come out and show pictures of Amari in this album because they made a whole thing, right? So they have pictures. Amari's looking at himself with the kid. Amari's like, wow, I can't believe this. Like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So what's the whole thing? Where's the kid? The kid passed away the year prior. That day that we were walking was the death anniversary of that kid. That was his yard. That was the time. That's the exact day that he died. The year prior. And we walk up there, and randomly, this random guy on the street says, yeah, I'm the guy who says, my FO Havdalah, where is it? Where's the Havdalah? Who has, what's the Havdalah at, right? And so we go there, and then the guy comes out. They're showing us albums. The family's crying. They said because his dream was for you to come over for Shabbat, and you're doing Havdalah with us right now on his death anniversary. Right now. Amari said, I can't take it. Like, we were just there. We were walking back. He said, that was the realest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then that was the beginning of his conversion. All right. So let's just go for it. Any thoughts, reflections on that before we go in? I'm sorry for the long story, but he's getting married tomorrow, and I just want to conjure as much energy for my brother as I can in the heavens, for God to have mercy on him and his family and the whole thing, and his journey and how pure his journey was. And it was like not ain't no agenda behind it. It was just like this guy just wanted to know about God, and he incredibly humbled himself in such a class act. So I'm trying to conjure any of that. But any thoughts and reflections on that before we go forward?
Baruch Hashem. I mean,
Amen. Baruch
Amen.
Hashem.
Amen.
Baruch
Baruch
Hashem.
Hashem.
Otino, you had a point on that?
just Baruch Hashem. I mean, those type of stories. I feel like in my life, nothing like that, but yeah, I can relate. Like my things I've experienced in my life, Rob, and wherever Baruch Hashem, we ever get together, I'll share some stuff with you, and it's like, bro, what? You know what I mean? So, like for myself, when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, Baruch Hashem. Like it's like that. It can be like that. Like all of our lives are special. You know what I mean? And some of our lives that get brought out, and it's like, so Baruch Hashem, let Yehoshaphat have a tremendous marriage, a blessed marriage. May he continue on the path of Zadikim, and may we all be blessed from the outpour of energy that he puts out on the earth, and we follow that path as well.
Amen. You are Tom.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. All right, so we'll go into it. It's a great way to start this conversation about Pesach prep. Otanel, we already started chipping away at it, but now we're bringing everything together, and we're going to bring some Rabbi Sachs and his beautiful explanations and clarity that he brings, and the depth, but simplicity. So what it's like, it's such a thing, and it's on us. Thank God for Safaria. So we're gonna go for that, but that energy we're tapping into is just like that's just God, and I'm just there witnessing that. I'm just like, man, this is crazy, this is wild, but this is the reality, Anyways, so let's continue on. We're dedicating, the learning to Yehoshaphat ben Abraham and his new challah, or his challah, and they should have success, and we're with them. And even though we're not there physically, we are sending the light from Jerusalem. Okay, so Rob Jonathan Sachs is joining us for this amazing teaching that he's gonna share with us about the Seder. Right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna learn this how the strategy of learning the Seder we're gonna use. We're going to go through the Haggadah. We're not going to finish it all tonight, obviously, but we're going to go through the Haggadah and all the points via Rabbi Sachs, right? So whatever Haggadah that you end up with, like in terms of the book, you may get a very inexpensive one, whatever, however you want to do. You can download it from the internet, whatever, but you'll have this understanding as you apply it, right? And you'll be able to teach also from this perspective, right? Specifically the people with children, these little fine points are important. Okay, so what does Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs have to teach us about the Seder? He says the word Seder means order, and it is central to the Jewish concept of freedom. We become God's partners in creation. So let's understand what that means. We become God's partners in creation, meaning that God gives us the ability, he gives us the will, he gives us the light, he gives us the energy, he gives us the intellect, he creates the world, he does all that. But he gives us this ability to express this idea of free will, right? Which is the choice to follow God's will and to go against our natural instinct inclinations in different ways, right? Some emotionally, some physically. But the point is saying, so when we do that, we become a part of creation. But God doesn't obviously have any partners, and we know that. But we just, want to clarify for the people listening. Okay, so he said we create in order. Okay, so he says we become partners. We become partners in the work of creation when we create order in society, in order that honors all persons in the image of God. If God, if God's presence is to be found not just in rare moments of ecstasy, but in daily transactions of society as a whole, then it must have a seder, a set of rules we all honor. Order turns individuals into a community and communities into people. The Seder night reflects the order that binds us together as Jews throughout the world and in previous generations. At the at the same time, the Seder leaves room for spontaneity. No two Seder nights are the same. Ideally, each family each year adds new insight as we reflect on our birth as a people and relate it to the present. The more one tells, the more admirable it is. Pesach is a fine example of the Jewish counterpoint between structure and spontaneity. He says we all tell the same story in the same words, but we each add something unique to ours. The rules are the same, but the commentaries and interpretations are always different, and that is how an ancient story stays young. Ooh, very nice. So he's saying this idea, like here's the structure, but bring your stories, bring your lives. You know, like we talked about earlier. About we read this beautiful insight to the book of Shemot, right? And all the great things that happened with Moshe, but the behind that was all women, right? And all these women did these very specific things that created so much greatness in the world. And what Rabbi Sachs is saying over here is like we have to bring our lives and our family and our histories in the Seder. Okay, you have to talk about your elders, your ancestors, different experience, people that you actually knew, people you met, people maybe you heard about, people who are in your neighbor, different things that connect to the different lessons that we're going to learn throughout the Seder to make it relatable to now, right? And that's the challenge. It's so interesting. Like you hear about these really like high level, like Kabbalah people and this and big rabbis, and all the big rabbis that I have met, and even rabbis that because I used to have roommates, and everyone had, we were all single guys, and this person eating by here, this person's eating by there, and so we all always exchanging stories. And so I had friends that were eating at some people's houses that I really admired. I was eating by my yeshiva and those people, but they're eating at other people's houses, and they were talking about these big rabbis, and on Seder night, they were just having fun with the kids most of the time. It wasn't like this heavy meditative experience and celestial worlds. Yeah, I mean, Rabbi Pinchas is in that, but even Chief Rabbi Pinchas, he's chill on Seder night. I had the pleasure. We had the pleasure of doing Pesach with him in the Old City in Jerusalem, and we made all of our matzah together. We learned everything together. He prepared us. But the point is just saying that he was just doing his own thing, and now you even see like it's even more. He's bringing out more of the ethnic components, the Nusak Afriki. I think Otino just got the Haggadah today, so there's a Haggadah that Chief Rabbi Pinchas um, put together himself. That has all the different meditations and heavy stuff, but also very cultural African-based themes inside of it with the Nusak Afriki. Okay, so that's the theme of the Seder. That's the theme of the night. We just read that. So what about the Seder plate? In ancient times, Seder's participants used to recline on couches, and each had a table. Nowadays, we did that by Rabbi Pinchas too. At Rabbi Pinchas, every family had their own table. But whatever. He says nowadays we still recline and drink wine, eat matzah, and tell the story. We group the ingredients of the Seder on a single plate, often by decorated specifically for the occasion. Okay? So, what is this idea of reclining? This idea of reclining, like normally, when you think about it, you think about the eating that they were doing before they left Mitzrayim. You think about the grabbing of the matzah, right? Because we got to go into matzah, because we got to know what matzah really is. Like, we're going to have to really go into matzah and really figure this out on a deep level. Because in Israel, like especially Jerusalem, I think it's all of Israel, but I know for sure in Jerusalem, they have different traditions. During the time of matzah, we don't wrap tefillin. For these 8 days, people in Jerusalem don't wrap tefillin. And I was on the bus once, or the train once, and I saw this guy. He just looked like he had wisdom, And I said to him, like, in Hebrew, I was just like, I said, like, wait, so we're not wearing tefillin? We're not wearing tefillin? And he said to me, like, he says, Matzot, I never met this guy in my life. He said, Matzot? The Matzot is so high, you're beyond tefillin. You're beyond it. Now, in America, I don't think they have that custom. But here, during the time, those 8 days in between, we don't wrap tefillin here. And that's how elevate the matzahs. Okay, so he's saying this idea of reclining, chilling. So the idea is like, I'm chilling. There's no rush, baby. We got this. Even though you got to do things by a certain time, okay? You got to do certain things before midnight, right? But the point is just saying the energy of the night is like, this is a time to chill. This is a time to reflect. So now they used to have couches that people used to eat on. And probably more people in the Middle East, probably. But the point is just saying, so it's about relaxation. Now we have regular chairs, but in general is that. And so people generally lean to the left to kind of go back in time where people like, they're more couchy, relaxed, this type of thing. I think in the future, try to figure out like how to really deal with that situation, how to create the most relaxed eating situation. Anyways, so that's how we do it today, right? He says, so these are the elements. Matzah, he says 3 matzahs representing the double portions of bread, always eaten on Shabbat and festivals, like the manna, right? Together with the 3, he says, together with a third to represent the special duty of the night. Okay, so normally we have 2 loaves of bread, right? Shabbat, but he said we had an extra one for that. So on your table, you're gonna have 3 pieces of matzah, right? And I know you guys know this, but we're gonna do it. And so the second part is zera, which is roasted shank bone, recalls the Passover offering. The bone itself specializes in it symbolizes the outstretched arm with God rescued the Israelites. So you got to have that shank bone. You got to have that shank bone on the table. And so you hit beitza. It says beitza is a roasted egg, reminding us of the Haggadah. He says in other festivals, offerings eaten on Pesach. Okay, we got to go more into that. We got to go more into this stuff. The Ma'or. Whoa, the Ma'or. This is something Otino was asking about a little bit earlier. Maybe he gives him some insight. We'll see. He says the bitter herbs, recalling the bitterness of slavery in Egypt. Nowadays, this is usually taken in 2 forms. A, in the time of the Mishnah, the food eaten as Ma'or is usually lettuce, right? And he says, although this does not always taste bitter to our palate, lettuce begins by being sweet and ends up by. Okay, that's interesting. Although it does not always taste bitter to our palates, lettuce begins by being sweet and ends by being bitter and hard, and thus it is thus euphemizes the experiences of the Israelites in Egypt. Usually, romaine lettuce is used. The other forms, horseradish, was the form of bitter herbs most readily available in Eastern Europe. Some people have the custom of to place both on the Seder plate, eating both in combination, or using the lettuce for the first mayor and the horseradish for the sandwich with matzah. All right. Some people have okay. All right, so we'll go more into it. So haroset, right? It's a mixture of fruit and spices, which the maor is dipped in, and the custom of using haroset in Pesach dates and back in the Mishnaic times. But since it is not custom, not an obligation, we do not say a blessing over it. There are two reasons for haroset. It recalls the mortar with which the Israelites made bricks when they were slaves, but it also recalls the verse in the Song of Songs, beneath the apple tree I woke you. He says, which the sages apply to the love between God and Israel, and that led to the redemption. Thus, the custom has developed to making haroset with various fruits mentioned in the Song of Songs: apples, pomegranates, figs, and nuts, and dates, all together with ground spices. Cinnamon and ginger are the most common, which recall the grinding of straws in all days. Wine is added to the mixture until it has the consistency of mortar. He said karpas. He said the vegetable we dip in salt water at the beginning in the seder to arouse the interest of a child. The original, he says, the original karpas is probably celery, but other vegetables have been used by different communities over various times at the customs. Or he says the common custom today is to use parsley, right? So this is your Seder table, and in the seventh part is in which the karpas is dipped. Recall the tears of the Israelites in Egypt. Okay, so the Seder plate itself is broken into 7 parts, right? And we know what that means. Connection to the 7 sferot. But we're not going there right now. We got to learn the basics to be clear there. Okay. So now we went over what's on the Seder plate itself. Let's go through the order briefly. Okay, so we owe it to French Tosfos, the sages of Rashi in the 12th and 13th centuries, Rav Shmuel of philosophy, the 15-word summary of the service. Okay, so this is the geniuses to put together. Okay, fine. So the first part, karpas, which is what? Saying kiddush drinking wine. Arkas, what is it? Washing before karpas. We wash, but we don't do what? Say the bracha. The karpas. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, kadash. I'm sorry. The first one is kadash. Sorry, kadash, yarkas, karpas. Right, and karpas is what? Taking the vegetable and dipping it in the salt water. Yakas. Right, and we're going to go into what these things mean in depth. He says yakas, spitting. He says splitting the middle. He says splitting the middle matzah. He says the splitting the middle matzah. So that's when we split the middle one. And he says magid. What's magid? Telling over the story, to set emotion, asking the questions to the kids. We're going to talk about that, right? And he says ratzat. He says the washing your hands before the meal. So this is the washing that we say with the bracha, right? And we say the motzi, we say the hamotzi for the blessing of the food, and we say a special bracha for the matzah, right? He says 9. He says the maror, then we eat the bitter herbs, right? Paracha, then we wrap it and we make a sandwich with that matzah. See, this is more clear than what me and Otina were doing earlier, because I was just like, this doesn't feel right the way it's reading. This feels right, the structure of it, right? Because it gotta feel right when you're learning. So it's like this. So we make that sandwich, right? We take the matzah, we make a little sandwich with the ma'or, this type of a thing. And so he says, and then we have the shulchan, the set of the table for the meal, right? We eat the meal, this whole thing, whatever dishes you guys want to add. And so he says, and then we have safan. He says, so we have the hidden, and then we the hidden matzah or the afrikomen that is at last to be eaten, right? So what's going on there? What's this afrikomen thing? Because he didn't say it earlier. Afikomen is like this: when we take those 3 middle matzahs and then we break the middle one, we take the half of that matzah and we tuck it away. It's a whole symbolic thing. It's a thing, whatever, blah blah. But it's part of this order of the seder. Okay, And then after that, we say a bracha, which is grace after meal, which is like brachado mazon, right? But we have, we add the extra parts for Pesach in it. We say the halal, right, which is with the conclusion halal. It's in our prayer books. We say Anna no Shiana. That's my favorite part of it. I mean, it's not the halal. It's just like God save us, God save us. Anna na haslichana. God give us success. So there's 15 parts. 15 parts, right? And then we did a Natsiya. He says the parting prayer that the Seder be accepted by God and become a prelude to the future redemption. Okay? And then he says the 15 stages, he said the 15 stages echo the 15 Psalms headed a psalm of decree, the 15 steps between the women's court and the court of the Israelites, in which the temple times the Levites would stand and sing prayers, and the 15 occasions of God's kindness to the Jewish people to recount the songs of Dayenu. Hold on, let me see where we're at on this. Um, I want to stop here because there's it's a good amount of information. It's smooth, and this wasn't meant to be a super long class. But any thoughts, response, ideas, reflections, questions?
Well, Baruch Hashem. No, hold on one second.
We go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. It's just, I really enjoy the fact that, we're going through this, because what the Haggadah does, it gives us, it gives us the structure, and it gives us the just the complete order of the ceremony of Pesach. And it just allows us to have that structure. And when we go through them, and we go through these structures, I mean, you can see it. It's like it really explains the whole story. It explains the whole story, and it also tells. Hold on, yeah. It also tells where we're going. As far as in how to look at life. But this is what we've been created for. To on this level of acknowledging Hashem.
So yeah, on that point, I think went out a little bit. He'll come back soon, but the point is just saying, like on that point exactly. We got to lay this thing out, and this is high level connection. You know, this is what millions of people are going to be doing around the world, and we're all going to be connected, even through different time zones. There's no time and space. Oh, Tino, you got any points on this?
Man, I love Pesach. I mean, it's one of those things like I can't really explain it well, I can, but like during like the Seder, like it's at first I thought it was just very enthusiastic and just you're hyped up, but it's like nah, I feel like almost like a time portal has been opened, and I feel like I'm really there. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the spiritual DNA being awakened, but man, I'll be there. I'll be feeling it. I'll be feeling like I'm on fire almost. You know what I mean? And it's like when we're doing the Maror, when we're doing, every step of it, it's just like my spirit is being completed. You know what I mean? I'll be so excited during Pesach. I'll be so turned up. So this, I think Pesach is my favorite. Well, outside Hanukkah, because that's my birthday. But I think Pesach is my festival. You know what I mean? So super excited about it this year. Every time it comes around, Bezrat Hashem, I have children one day. I can't wait to do it with the kids.
Yeah,
And
man.
teach them, and I'm excited about one day opening up to my family and to my friends.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Have a huge Pesach Seder and just that's why I'm so thankful. Like getting accustomed to. I think I was telling you earlier, Rob, how the first Pesach was just like completely overwhelming. I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing, whatever. And then like now, I'm a little more comfortable. So, Bezrat Hashem, in the future, have a huge Pesach Seder hopefully we're all together. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that'd be the idea. That'd be the best thing. Like for us to
Yeah.
all be together with our families and just
Hmm.
doing it together. Chief Rabbi Pinchas, I mean, that's the next level, and we're building to that. We're building
Yeah.
that. We're building a solid foundation, but we have to have communal events where we all come together from the different parts of the world. You know what I mean? Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No, just to that point, like, I envision, I have an ambitious imagination, but
Mm,
I envision like my whole city having
mm,
TikTok together, you know what I mean? Like
mm, 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 mm,
turned
mm,
up, you know what I mean? Because I always feel like, people get excited and turned up for everything else. So it's like, dude, let's get turned up for Hashem. You know what I mean? Like it's the let's get right with Kedusha. And it's a feeling that you can't even explain, like Shabbos is so amazing. I always just wish more people could be involved in it, to feel it.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? To really feel that liberation. Like, oh, you go to the club, like, hey, no, the club ain't nothing. Club ain't got nothing on, your Friday night. Lock in
yeah,
on this Kiddush. Lock in
yeah.
on these meals. Like the food on Shabbat tastes better than any food I've had the whole week. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So it's like I'm super excited about it. So like Bezat Hashem, it expands and we all get together and hopefully the whole world is acknowledging Pesach one day.
Amen, 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 amen. All right.
But oh,
Oh, go ahead. You back?
yeah, yeah. I want to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Just your reflection on what your perception on this. Um, Pesach has always been just a really exciting uh, time. Now in years past, we've noticed that um, we've tried to increase our practice in Pesach each year. And do you feel that if you have a community that is not aware of what freedom feels like, or the whole aspect of coming out of slavery, coming out of bondage, do you think it's possible that a community may not appreciate it the same way if they don't really understand that dynamic?
Mm, the thing about slavery is that slavery, the Torah brings it on so many different levels, and there's so many things that stop us from expressing our soul's potential, right? So for some people, it may be through this thing, some people may be through this other thing, but all of humanity, we're all in slavery. It may be easier to see certain people at different points in history and be like, whoa, look, those people are enslaved, but we're all slavery, So I think it's really about mankind. And the most important point is that it's not about the national experience. It is, but it's not, meaning that it's about the light that emanates from the heavens on the 14th and the 15th of Nisan. That light, we want to capture it in our souls so that can fill the rest of our bodies, right? We need this light. And this light, this particular quality of light, like a kaleidoscope, this particular light has a particular influence. That influence can be used to harness to break through the perceptions of limitation. Now, we have a national experience of that happened 3,300 and something years ago, which was my ancestors that left slavery completely in Egypt and split the Red Sea and then went to talk to God and brought the Torah down. That's who I am, right? But at today, that same energy my ancestors used to break through that limitation, I have access to that same energy today, and I can break through my current limitations. And it's not limited to me. So someone else who maybe not have that national experience, because through their ancestry, they could still connect to the light that's available on that day because it's a cosmic opening. And in terms of devotion and prayer, they can understand that this is a day that the quality of the light that is decided is a quality that determines how much grain is going to be provided for the needy around the world, right?
Wow. So
Mm-hmm.
the reason that I asked it, and I love that answer. It really it covers a whole scope of just different concepts about Pesach and how we relate it to society today. The reason that I asked, because I was just meditating on the fact that I was just trying to imagine what Jews were feeling being in during the Holocaust and being in concentration camps, knowing or just maybe even having a sense, because I know sometimes they lost track of days and so forth. Just having that mindset, that Passover, the day of Passover, and yet they're seeing themselves in that environment. And then, you know, the survivors coming out of that. And I could just imagine just the power of Pesach, in those following years throughout their generations. And then secondly, I don't, just the thoughts about, I sent you that little message about the Civil War,
Mm.
because like I said, it's one thing for you to know about Passover and you've experienced it before, but not knowing it, and yet um, Hashem is still working things out on your behalf during these times when these great lights are being produced or manifesting. With Civil War, as far as when it began and when it ended, and the day that the Declaration went out about, for freedom for the slaves here in America.
Yeah, so you made me think about a very important point. So definitely the situation, in the Holocaust. I mean, we can't imagine what those experiences were, and the different types of experiences. But when you said that, it made me also think about my ancestors, and it made me think about the difference between the Pesach that they were having in Africa versus the Pesach they had when they first came to North America. Right? Like, were they able to recognize that it was Pesach? Did they know? Like, what was the custom like? You know what I'm saying? Like, was it a moon connection? What was the thing? Right? How they understand it? Was matzah ever involved? Like, how did they understand it? Right? And then you think about the generations that first generation that came here that had some recollection of who they were, right? And maybe even the second generation. But what about this? What about the sixth and the seventh, right? Of people that were in that slavery, right? And the ideas of Shabbat, because they have stories of people that were in the transatlantic slave trade that were Ebos that traveled and this, and they saw different customs. Like, hey, that's how we did back in my native land. Some of the traditions or days or whatever. They have these stories, right? Of people who were freed, whatever. But the point is just saying, so like that aspect of our experience as men, as women, right? In that absence of the creator, like that it was complete darkness, right? It was complete darkness, right? And it was this, and you're in a completely different experience in a completely different land, and you're completely subjugated, right? And there's no way you could get back. Like there's no so that experience, and to be able to go in that place in our mind, because that's very recent genetic history inside of us, right? And to meditate on what it must have been like, right? What it must have been like to be in a foreign land, what it was like in Africa, and what it was like to have no knowledge of God in generations later, right? But still having knowledge of God. That's what I need to tap into on Pesach. I need to tap into that original mind that was on the plantation, that had wisdom of the past, but was dealing with a new reality in the present. I need to tap into the mind of my ancestors that had no there was no real understanding of the creative system of the universe. That was removed from him. But within that, there was still that same holiness that exists in me today. So I need to connect to that process. that process, there's nothing but light there. There's nothing but light. Those people were completely subjugated, obedient, going through the process with purity, not violence, nothing. There's nothing but light there. Those could be the most purest people on planet Earth at that moment in history. I need to connect there. I need to connect there. I need to feel the pain of there, and I also need to feel the joy. And I need to feel the process of being in complete darkness. That's what it was. We didn't know about Mount Sinai. We didn't know about the Yam Suf. All we know is that we've been brutalized, raped, pillaged, destroyed, killed, burnt alive, thrown into rivers. That's in Egypt. And then all of a sudden we have this thinking process that now we can go to a new way, that there's a better way, that there's a different reality. And everything that we ever experienced, we're never going to experience it again. That was an unbelievable thought. That's what they were saying in Africa. The Seder was in Africa. And that's what they were thinking then. That we're about to do something that's never existed before. That the creator, wow. The creator of the universe is with us right now. And he's going to take us to a new place. That's the Seder table. That's the Seder table. All right, so we'll continue on tomorrow. And any last points on that? Sorry, I heard somebody say something.
Toda. I mean, Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. So we'll continue tomorrow on this topic. Otinel, you have to join in this year tomorrow, just so we're on the same page, because I don't know how far he goes in the Haggadah, those type of things. So I want to have at least have the base premise together. Okay, but we'll figure out the times. But we got to do this tomorrow too, maybe even during the daytime. All right, Baruch Atah Adonai Leolam Amen ve'Amen.
Amen.